Friday Live. Welcome to everybody who's watching either on LinkedIn or on YouTube or on Facebook. That's right, we are live across 3 platforms now because, one just wasn't enough. So my name is Matthew Hughes, and it's my privilege, my pleasure, my joy to be welcomed this week joined this week by 2 of my very good friends from So Marketing, Catharine Aberley and Chelsea Spencer. Catharine, Chelsea, welcome to both of you.
Thank you for having us.
Fantastic, good stuff. So, Catharine, if I come to you first, just give us a quick 60 to 90 second overview. Just tell us who you are, what it is you do, how you add value to your clients.
Yeah, so obviously, as you mentioned, Catharine Aberley from So Marketing. We are a creative agency based in Leek, which is kind of in the centre. Well, a lot of people think it's the centre of the universe, but it is pretty central. We do have a satellite office in London as well, so we can, deal with anyone all over. We specialise in website creation, design and creation, I should say, but with other strings to our bow, which I'm sure Chelsea will mention. We've been going since 2007, when me and my husband James took the plunge and both left jobs to start it up on our own. And since then, we've grown amazingly with a brilliant team. And I think I forget now if it's 13 or 14 strong we are now. So, yeah, it's really good.
Fantastic. Good stuff. Excellent. And one of that amazing team is, of course, Chelsea. Chelsea, do you want to give us a quick 60, 90 seconds on who you are, what your background is?
Sure. So I am the marketing manager here at So Marketing, and I joined last year in July. I joined in July, and since then we have created some new services. I lead the digital and content marketing arm of the business. So while Catherine was talking about the award-winning website design and development services that we offer, next prong to that is once people have their websites up and running, they obviously want people to see those websites, and then they come to me to make that happen. My background is very colourful. I've had customer services, sales and marketing roles. So very kind of creative in that area, and an English literature degree. So completely not related to anything I'm doing, apart from writing every day.
I was going to say English literature, that'd be the use of the English language to be able to communicate emotions and everything else. And that's totally unrelated to marketing, right?
Yeah, right? Completely unrelated. I mean, I used to sit around reading all day, if I'm being completely honest.
Yeah, it's very relatable, I think. But there you go. I mean, as human beings, we're hardwired to relate to stories. There's the old phrase of stories sell and facts tell. So I think English literature is probably the best degree you could do, isn't it?
I mean, I'm biased and I want to say yes. So, marketing degree, there's still time to change now.
There you go. Absolutely. Yeah, it's very good. That or psychology, I reckon. Either one of those will help you. So that kind of leads us neatly into, I guess, where I wanted to start today's conversation, which is really around what marketing even is. Because, it's one of those areas where it seems like a very broad church, and yet some people have got a very, very narrow view of it. They tend to mistake marketing for one particular thing. They'll think, oh, marketing, that means social media, or marketing, that means going on the telly, or something. I mean, what is good marketing, and why should people care? Catharine, if I come to you first.
Yeah, so, I mean, like you say, it is so broad that, as I mentioned to you before, in hindsight, we possibly wouldn't have called ourselves So Marketing, because it makes people think of, well, perhaps things that we don't do, like you say, TV. It's not something we really get involved in. And for us, it was always web design, creation, graphic design, and print was our area of marketing. We still do dabble with all of that. Web is the main thing, really. So it's marketing, can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And, even, where you go around asking questions of people, and things like that, just to find out, what's going on. That's not anything that we do, but obviously that's still part of marketing. So it is quite wide and varied.
Absolutely. So it's market research, it's lead generation, it's creating a brand, it's being the voice of a brand, it's pretty much everything that comes to do with the personality of your company and how you communicate that. Chelsea, from your point of view, I mean, you've got a broad range of experience to match the broad church that is marketing. talk to me a little bit about that whole kind of that piece that we've just been talking about there, that broad sort of a misunderstanding, if you like, of what marketing actually is, and how that can, I suppose, trip companies up.
So what I've found is, if you don't look at things holistically and keep in mind marketing as a complete whole entity, you're going to fall flat on your face, because really good marketing needs to happen internally, because it's essentially communication. People need to know where they fit into the ecosystem of your business. It's external because you need to know what people actually want, what their needs are. So that's where market research comes into place. It's also about where you position yourself, so the branding, how you create all of that, and then also managing the sentiment of it. And then you've got the more tactical approaches, how you actually get those messages out there through your communication system. And if you don't look at marketing as a whole ecosystem of things that you need to constantly keep an eye on, so you've got the externals, the internals, and marry it all up together through a financially literate business, then it's not going to work.
Oh, beautifully articulated. I love that. The emphasis on it being internal and external. It's essentially communication, and it has to be in a financially literate business. What a beautifully wonderful way of phrasing it. I really like that. So what would I've got to ask the question though, what would be a financially illiterate business in this particular scenario?
I think a financially illiterate business doesn't understand the pulls of marketing, and you actually need to put money into it. So, for example, it's like investing. You're going to start putting money into an account and not seeing a return straight away. But then after a few months, you're going to start seeing that, and it's going to keep increasing. And then that compound interest over time, if you're consistent with it, it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing and growing.
Yeah, that's
absolutely perfect there. Go for it. Sorry, Catherine. Go on.
I was just going to say that my background is more of the account side. So when I first started my first real job, I would always be questioning what the marketing people were spending the money on. And I'd have the invoices come through and go, what the heck, really? How can this be, how can this be right? But you do need to spend the money to see the results. And I've learned that a lot more since we've had this business. So I've seen it from both sides.
Interesting. I like that a lot, because that sort of puts me very much in mind of the old Einstein quote of, there's two types of people in the world. There's those who understand compound interest, and there's those that pay for it, which I'm a huge fan of that particular phrase. So looking at it from that point of view, then when you had your accounts hat on, Catherine, and you were looking at it and going, you're spending how much on what?
Yeah.
Some of the time when you said that, you were probably right, because it strikes me that there's a lot of marketing dollars, a lot of marketing pound notes that get spent, which actually are massively wasted. Definitely. So what does good look like in terms of a marketing spend? Because I think Chelsea's got a great point, which is consistency. You've got to get the flywheel turning. How do you know that you're spending the money in the right way?
Well, I guess you have to spend it on things that you can see results from. So that it's not just disappearing off into the ether and you're being told that it's doing the right thing, but without actually seeing any proof of that. You need to know that the people that you're investing your money with know what they're doing and aren't going to waste your money, which has always been one of our big things, is that we won't waste money. We won't waste your money. We understand that it's precious. And if we don't think it will get you any return on your investment, then we will tell you so. We'll say, don't waste your money on it.
That's very refreshing, because I think that's client-centric view, rather than just taking a take the money and run, smash and grab type of view. I suppose most people would purport to have a more client-centric view, but very few do. So it is an interesting approach, really, that needs to be taken more often, in my view. But when you sort of look at a client who comes to you, let's say for a new website, and we're talking about a high value e-commerce website, which is going to be the main revenue source, and probably the main place where a lot of transactions for the business are going to take place. Let's say it's a retail business or something like that. the kind of site that you would build for them, it's going to be very robust. You're going to be able to put an awful lot of information on there, high diversity of product catalog with lots of different variations on there. Mm-hmm. It's going to be very visible on the internet, etc., etc., etc. There's a lot of complexity that goes into this. A lot of stuff that to the layperson like me is almost like, well, basically it might as well be witchcraft, because it's very confusing. When you've got a client coming into you and they've got something fixed in their head, but it isn't necessarily right, how do you go about kind of helping them to discover what would be better for
them? I mean, historically, we're probably quite blunt. I know people who would, agree with that, but, we're customers, and we don't just sort of fluff over things and sort of nod and say, yes, you're correct. We will argue the point if we think they are very wrong, not to be argumentative, but because we don't want them to make mistakes, really.
I think ultimately as well, going back off that, we've also got to take into consideration our reputation. So if we're not happy that this product that we are providing someone will meet their goals and we don't think it's going to work, then I don't think it's fair for us to put our necks on the line and have to have that risk of ruining our own reputations to appease a client. It's just better not to work with that client.
Definitely. And I think that's something we've learned over time as well. I think as you get more experienced with customers, and possibly with age as well, because again, we were still quite young, I suppose, when it started, but you learn the value in being able to say no, and that actually a customer isn't a good fit, and like you say, would reflect badly on us.
Yeah, it's a really valid point. Actually, sometimes what we say no to is more important than what we say yes to, right? And there is reputational risk from taking on jobs which just aren't right. So no, I think that's right. I also think what you're saying is valuable from the customer's point of view, because it is very much about, I suppose, sometimes stopping people inadvertently self-sabotaging through their own known unknowns, or even their unknown unknowns. The stuff they don't know about. So that's yeah.
They're experts in their field, and we are in ours.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, if it is a retail business, they're probably really, really good at running shops. But this whole clever internet thing that I'm sure it's never going to catch on. But apparently it's getting quite big. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway. It strikes me that this point at which you're talking about your client-facing piece, this is where almost the marketing from your own business actually interfaces with that dread word sales. The bit at the point where you actually talk to the clients, that bit. This is an interesting thing for me. It's something that fascinates me endlessly, because I've sat around a lot of board tables over the years, and one of the things I would note that is very common, and it happens to a lot of my clients as well, is that the marketing department is sort of here and the sales department is here, and it's like watching two vicious bulls sort of square up to each other on a field, and they just want to go head to head and start battering into each other, and yet nominally they're both there for revenue generation. Why is that? What goes on with that?
I think fundamentally, it's a lack of appreciation for the other's role. And in any sort of revenue generating environment where you're probably heavily KPI'd and there are targets to hit, if one team isn't doing very well, it's easy to blame the other team without looking at it as a whole piece. So ideally, what you need is, because if you think about it in terms of like macro and micro, marketing is macro. You're trying to influence people on a macro level en masse. Sales is usually like one-on-one, so it's that kind of like really nitty-gritty. So marketing, you've got like lead generation, trying to get all of this. Sales is that person that then takes that lead and converts it, and both of them have incredibly difficult nuances that you have to take into consideration. From someone who has done both and still does both, it's very hard to explain to someone who doesn't understand half of the job. So for example, if I've got my marketing hat on and I'm not looking at like the kind of final conversion rates of those leads, you're kind of thinking really big picture, looking at all of the data. But then when you've got your sales hat on and you're trying to get a conversion to actually convert, well, a lead to actually convert, and you have to look at all of the subtle nuances of, right, okay, well, this is slightly out of price for this client, and also this person has this time frame and we're not quite sure if we can make it. There are subtle things that can make or break a sale, even if your marketing team have done incredibly well at getting that in. Yeah. So when you kind of weigh them up, it's difficult to do so, even though ideally it should be one smooth, streamlined process.
I love that. That was an answer that I cannot fault in any way. I really love that. The fact that you've emphasised the fact that some of this comes from a blame culture. You know, if one team's hitting their KPIs and the other team isn't, then it's it's that kind of, it was their fault. It wasn't me, Gov.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of externalization of blame. You know, oh, well, it's not our fault. We're not hitting our sales targets. It was the crappy leads that the marketing department gave us. You know, it's well, it's not our fault that that nothing's converting. It's that sales team that isn't converting the damn thing. So you know,
it's also inherently competitive as well. So they want to be seen as the one that's not to blame, but the one that's performing better, and the one that is making the difference, and that that is the showstopper kind of side of it.
Absolutely, yeah. So there's a little bit of glory hunting and a little bit of blame culture and a little bit of that going on, which ultimately ends up in these silos, which is fundamentally unhelpful to the overall game, which nominally should be the same thing, which is we want to grow the revenue of the business. So yeah. So how do we join all that together? Because one of the things that I've noticed, and we were talking about this just before we came on air, I've noticed that there's an increasing number of businesses, which are particularly larger businesses in the tech space, that are investing in really joining these perceived silos together under the auspices of a chief revenue officer or a chief, basically somebody who's there to drive the overall revenue by joining together customer experience, marketing and sales, so that there is that seamless journey that you referred to. I mean, is that something you've come across very much, or do you see that that's sort of happening in different areas, in different ways?
In terms of my first ever role, it was on the guest excellence team at a national theme park, and it was essentially sales, marketing and customer services. So what we had to do was basically socially listen to all of the things that people were saying about us online, check what the sentiment was, also collate all of the complaints that we were getting from customers, and basically kind of like try and problem solve them. So if, for example, people were complaining that there weren't enough benches, we'd have to put together a business plan, like a proposal, and then take that to the directors and try and get them to buy into it to solve the problem. And obviously we had to take into consideration cost, how many people were making these complaints, how many free things we had to give away in terms of resolutions and how much that was costing us, and weigh it all up together. And I think in terms of revenue generation, but also revenue protection, it can be quite difficult if you don't understand all three areas of customer experience, marketing and sales, because they are so closely related that you almost need to understand all three to understand the problem.
Yeah,
I think that's profoundly true. Catherine, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if it's just how we might see things a little differently, but I don't see how you can separate them really. I think they, like you say, they all need to be a part of the same thing. You have the same end goal. You want great customer service, you want great marketing, you want great sales, and you can't, like you say, you can't have one without the other. So why they wouldn't be all part of the same thing, I just don't understand it.
I mean, ultimately, from a customer's point of view, which is really the only point of view that matters here, forgive the phraseology. I'm sorry for anybody who doesn't like salty language on a Friday afternoon, but why do they give a shit? They don't. I mean, it doesn't matter to them, does it? No. Ultimately, do they care? Well, that was the marketing department's fault. Oh no, that was the sales department. All they care about is their personal experience. So that should be the overarching thing, right?
Yeah,
I think if you look at successful businesses as well, if you use a kind of adage of like, can you make a better burger than McDonald's? Every single person will say yes. But if then you ask the question, can you create a better system than McDonald's for producing burgers? People can't say yes. Like barely anyone does say yes because they can't. So then when you're thinking about the ecosystem of a business, if you've got all of these silos and all of these strands where they're not communicating properly, then you've got an inefficient system that doesn't work. So really, you need to fix the system, and then the product, it's non-legible really. Your system needs to work for you to have a good business.
I think, yeah, and one of the reasons that we've employed Chelsea is that sometimes when you're so busy, your own marketing, even though we are, a marketing company, your own stuff gets left, to the last, and sometimes you don't get to it at all. So I think having Chelsea on board has even helped us to make everything flow properly. And she is kind of like I don't want to say the middleman, but she kind of gets everything sort of working seamlessly, really. And that's kind of how everything should work.
Excellent. So you the emphasis on systematization and really kind of it driving efficiency. How do you manage systematization, if I can even say that word clearly, without losing the human touch as well? Because I guess it is very much a human industry, isn't it?
Yeah, so one thing that we've recently just launched in ours in terms of like systems and communicating, as we're a service-based business, our service depends on the skill set of the people that work for us, and communicating those skill sets and getting people bought into the team externally. So we've recently launched something where the business now, we're having quarterly meetings with line managers so people know what is expected of them and they can tell us their goals. The company is investing into learning and development of every single person on the team so that they get to learn things that align with their goals and align with our services and help with service creation. They then also report back to me in terms of what they're learning about, coming up, like giving me all of the information, because I'm a marketing manager. I'm not a web developer. I do not even pretend to know anything about it. Probably actually one of the most technologically inept people you will ever meet. But they give me the information and then I spin that in a way that our clients will understand and will actually matter to them, because no one understands if code is good or bad for their website or what good or bad code is, but they understand that if you don't fully protect your website and have good code in place, then you're more susceptible to hacking. So it's all about information and the flow of information, and then the slant that we put on that for our clients. But everyone has to be on board and the ecosystem has to work for everyone. So in terms of making a system that works and making it human, just treat people as people and make sure you understand what's expected of them. And then in return, they'll also be able to communicate well with you too.
Yeah, I think we've always been quite proud of how we've treated members of staff, and it almost seems incorrect calling them staff. It's not, we're friends and family kind of thing. We do have a family vibe, and I think I'd like to think that if anyone had a problem, they would come to one of us. And I think if ever that has happened, they have. And we will accept ideas. If someone thinks that the business should go in a different way, then great, we'll take that on board. And in similar ways with Chelsea, she's not been with us a year yet, but she's now got her own member of staff. And that's the direction she wanted to take it in. So that's what we've done. So if we're all happy with what we're doing and confident in what we're doing, then the customer will be as well.
I think there's two things that I'd really like to unpack there. The first thing is, as you've just said, what you project, the world will reflect. So if you are happy, confident, and you're a nice workplace, and you're a good place to work, well, guess what is going to just be exuded by your business. And I think businesses that I've worked in previously, which shall remain nameless, where maybe the culture has been a tad toxic, it's been recognizable. Ultimately in the bottom line. So with your accounts hat on, you would definitely go, you know what, a good corporate culture, that's good for my bottom line. I quite like that. But the other thing which I really did want to sort of drill into was the point that Chelsea was just making before about actually communicating in a way that is important to the customer and they can relate to. So, you know, who gives a damn about code? I don't care about that. I do care whether people hack my website and take it offline so I can't actually transact. So when we talk about sort of looking at things from the customer's point of view and really trying to communicate through their eyes and ears and what matters to them, how do we start off by doing that? What's our starting place to be able to achieve that?
Empathy. If you're not good at empathy, if you're not good at listening to people, if you're not good at picking up on societal moods, social cues, you're not going to be good at marketing and you're not going to be good at sales. If you're not a people person and if you do not care about people, this isn't the industry for you.
I would say that we do get to know our customers pretty well, and I think that helps. So I think on the whole, we kind of know how they tick, because not everyone's the same at all, and they don't work in the same way.
Yes, I think that's very, very true. And you know, the emphasis on thinking as them, that empathetic side of things. It's the old Daniel Goleman thing, isn't it? Of, you know, emotional intelligence is a far greater predictor of success than IQ, if you like. So EQ better than IQ. Really, and never more so than in marketing and sales and customer experience, right? So yeah, interesting. So when a customer first comes to you, or a potential customer comes to you, in fact, in my world, I would call them a prospective customer, prospect for short. Because they haven't put money in my bank yet, so they're a prospect, not a client. Okay. Yeah. So at this stage, when they're a prospect, what does that journey look like for them if they first come to you? Catherine, I'll come to you first.
Okay, so we would tend to have an initial chat via email, but then we'd sort of move it on perhaps to Zoom or telephone in these current times. Normally we would more, happily invite people over to see us, or we go to see them, whichever they prefer. Some people quite like to get out of the office. So yeah, we just have a chat and just find out what is needed, really, and then ask them some leading questions, I guess. To find out, I suppose, what they know as well. And some people have a very, very firm idea of what they think they want. And sometimes we agree and sometimes we don't. So we kind of take it from there, really.
Excellent. So it's an open collaborative discovery meeting to start with, and then it's and then taking it to the next base.
I mean, if somebody is completely clueless, then obviously we'd guide them the whole way. But it's not, we don't take over by any stretch, but we definitely advise if we don't think what they're saying is correct.
Excellent, good stuff. So we don't let people self-sabotage. That is a good thing. Wonderful. Well, listen, I can hardly believe this, but it's coming up on nearly our full half hour together already. I did say it was going to go really rapidly, didn't I? There you are. So I'm good as my word on this. So Chelsea, I'll come to you first. If people wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you and contact you?
They can either send me a message on LinkedIn, so it's Chelsea Spencer, and I'm the marketing manager at So Marketing, or just drop me an email at chelsea@somarketing.com. Absolutely
fantastic. And Catherine, what about you?
Yeah, same. I'm Catherine at somarketing.com. We've also got the hello@somarketing.com, which we can all see. So, if you didn't know who you needed, as it were. Happy to have a chat on the phone. Facebook, we have our Facebook page as well, so that's monitored, so you can contact us as a business on there or personally. We're all quite open to a chat to anyone, really, and see what we can do to help.
Fantastic, absolutely brilliant. And it wouldn't be right of me to let you go without asking both of you what you're reading, watching, listening to right now that you think that everybody should definitely have on their nightstand or whatever that they want to read. Chelsea, I'll come to you first.
I'm not great with this question because I usually have about 4 books on the go. So I've recently read Happy Sexy Millionaire by Stephen Bartlett. That was very, very good. I recommend that. He had a great chapter on skills stacking, which I quite like because I have a range of different skills and I'm hard to put into a box sometimes. So the sales, the marketing, the customer services, the creative side, and also the analytical side. And so I enjoyed that, especially the part about skills stacking. Very good.
Nice, excellent. I shall put that on my reading list. I haven't read that one. Thank you for that. Catherine, what would you recommend?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I need to go through Chelsea's reading list because it does seem quite epic. So yeah, I mean, I'm reading something about a psychopath at the moment, which isn't massively helpful. I mean, the odd customer maybe. But I have got a next book that was recommended to me, and I think it's called "It Didn't Start With You," and it's about how previous traumas in your family and genetically going backwards affect how you are now. So I'm quite looking forward to the psychology behind all that, which I think could be useful.
Interesting. Well, a couple of recommendations for both of you. If you haven't read it, Marketing Rebellion by Mark Schaefer is definitely worth a read. The book that I would recommend for you that I think will fit very nicely onto your nightstand, given what else you're reading right now, is a book called Talking to Crazy. It's by a guy called Dr. Mark Goulston. That's really cool. Lots about emotional intelligence in there as well, so you probably like that one as well, Chelsea. And the other one is, there's a book called Demand Side Selling by Bob Mester. He makes some really, really good points about the fact that customers don't actually buy anything from you. All they ever do is rent an outcome until a better solution comes along. I think that's a really point, which I really like. Anyway, we are at the top of our half hour together, so it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you both. Thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. For anybody who's wanting to get in touch with me, my name's Matthew Hughes. Don't you worry, you don't have to be spelling that entire long stupid name. It's far too many letters, 20 letters in that name. It's just greedy. So it's mph@sandler.com. Just use the initials. It's easy. Otherwise, you can get in touch with me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Carrier Pigeons, Smoke Signals, a bit of Spinecraft. You can use some of that sort of lemon juice writing and a dead letter drop, whatever. I answer to most things. Other than that, that is us for another Friday Live. Have a fantastic week, everybody, and we will see you again next week. Catherine, Chelsea, thanks again. Much appreciated.
Thank you.